Now, one thing you brought up before, it's basically NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It can slow down, and that's the body's defense about like staying alive. Because if you're in too big of a calorie deficit, you don't want to have a fast metabolism. A slow metabolism, you mentioned, could be a good thing. If you're trying to survive, you're starving. But we know with cardio that a lot of people have been saying, well, even if you do cardio, your metabolism is going to slow down from that. Your NEAT is going to go down. If you go out and burn 2,000 calories on a 3-hour bike ride, for the rest of the day, you're going to probably sit back on the couch, not move, and burn fewer calories. And so that's one of the big problems is people who are obese, that calorie burn goes down more than somebody like me and you, because we're used to exercise. You go for a run for an hour, you feel good. You probably don't need to lay on the couch like you're going to die. Someone else never ran before, runs for an hour, going to feel like they got ran over by a truck. Their metabolism going to slow down that much more. And so do you think that people are overestimating the importance of this factor in cardio? Like, do you think that people should be concerned with that? Is that an excuse to not do cardio? What kind of cardio should it be? HIIT, LISS, miss like, is there an afterburn? Like, let's talk about cardio, NEAT, calorie burning, and like, what is the best kind of cardio and what should people be doing? And I know I said a lot there, but let's break this down.
Today's video is sponsored by Thrive Market. If you do want to do keto, I definitely recommend you check them out. I put a link down below. They're an online membership-based grocery store. So if you're doing keto or you're really doing any kind of dietary pattern, paleo, vegan, whatever, you can go to Thrive Market and you can do all your shopping based upon how you're eating. So if you're doing keto, you can select keto. If you're vegan, you can select vegan, and it'll collate and it will get everything organized in a way where you can shop based upon what you want and filter. It is unbelievably cool and revolutionizes how you would do your grocery shopping. Then it gets delivered to your doorstep in a couple of days, easy peasy. So there's a link down below. Because they're an awesome sponsor, that link will save you 25% off your first order. Plus, you'll get a free gift along with that, but you have to use that link down below. So big thank you to Thrive Market for the sponsorship on this channel in this video, and make sure you check them out. Let's continue.
This is the one thing I've been waiting for, the one thing that Greg Doucette and I can absolutely rant on together, okay? And that is the world of cardio, okay? If you know me, you know I'm a cardio guy. If you know Greg, you know Craig's a cardio guy. Okay, with this whole world, people tend to demonize cardio so much, they forget the fact that muscle is a secretory organ. Okay, when you move muscle, it is secreting signals that scream, I am relevant. It screams, hey, don't waste me, I'm being used. And from a calorie standpoint, whether you are running, whether you are biking, whether you are swimming, I don't care. I could list a bunch of benefits as to how cardio is benefiting your lifts, is benefiting your body composition. And when it comes down to like non-exercise activity thermogenesis, even if it's negligible, let's say if someone goes out and goes for a run, you know, we could document all kinds of things and say, yeah, maybe they're burning X amount of calories more throughout the course of the day. The big question that people have is, oh, well, that's going to break down my muscle tissue, and my muscle is my most precious commodity when it comes down to the metabolism. If you condition your muscles to also be able to be adapted to cardio, don't you think that your body is going to learn how to preserve that? And as long as you are not, if that's something you continually do, why would your body continually break things down that it's using? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, you've seen Greg's quads. The guy, you know, like you ride a bike like a machine. If that theory made sense, then you would have total bird legs, right? It doesn't really equate. But I think, you know, the question that you asked, and this is what I really want to kind of talk about, the low intensity cardio world, okay? And when you look at that, like people think, okay, well, low intensity cardio, you're burning more fat. Okay, you're burning more fat as a percentage, okay? But your actual intensity is so low that that percentage doesn't really mean diddly squat, because it's not ever getting up high enough to actually burn much. So who cares if you're burning 70% fat, but you're doing it at such a low intensity, you're burning so little, versus, hey, let's ramp it up a little bit, maybe just some, like, you know, as you call it, you know, medium intensity, like the MISS, like that medium state. At least at that rate, Yeah, the fat percentage that you're utilizing might come down 5, 10, 15%, but the overall calories you're burning over the course of an hour is 40% more. So if you delta it out and you look at the math, the actual fat that you burned is significantly more. And as long as your calories are where they need to be and your macronutrients are, again, I say this loosely, where they need to be for whatever respective diet you're doing, then that's not going to be catabolic unless you let it become catabolic. Which meaning like don't eat.
And I think where you said is like people are avoiding doing cardio thinking they're going to lose muscle. Perhaps they're doing cardio empty stomach because they think they're burning more fat that way. And does it matter if you're actually burning more fat? Because at the end of the day, it's still calories in, calories out. Whether or not you burn a high, like 80, 90% of the calories from fat during the activity, or if it was 10%, that really doesn't matter. It's at the end of the day, are you in a net deficit or not? And if you do harder cardio, you're going to burn more calories than if you do easy cardio. So if you're out there walking like Grandma Josephine, 2 miles an hour, and you burn 200 calories in an hour versus you're actually going hard and you burn 600 calories, whether or not you burnt more fat as a percent during that time, it doesn't matter because 600 versus 200, you're burning off that many more calories.
Yeah, you are. And let's not discount people that want to go out and do lists, right? Like I want to make sure that it's super clear that even though we're ranting on this, like I'm a big fan of movement, right? Moving all the time. I don't like to sit down. I like to move consistently. I still have my hard workouts, my harder cardio. I'm a big cardio person, but I move a lot throughout the day. I'm like an old grandma that counts my steps. I look at my steps. Like I try to get 20,000 steps in a day because again, it's like for me, it comes back to like relevance. Like there's not like legitimate documented literature with this, but it makes just complete sense. If your body is moving, then the body is going to say, hey, like that's precious tissue that we want to use. Same kind of thing with lifting weights. It's an adaptation. And yeah, exactly. Like if you're going to go do harder cardio, but then one of the things that's really interesting is a world that I've been just heavily like looking at a lot is the world of like lactate, like training hard to a lactate threshold, actually getting that lactic acid burn. I think people naturally just inherently want to avoid pain. I think that's just kind of what it comes down to. Hard things are hard, and it's hard to do hard things, and you don't want to feel pain, and I get it, okay? But, again, like you have to have an adaptation, hormetic stress. It's also hard to sit in a sauna at 220 degrees. It's also hard to do a cold plunge. It's also hard to squat 600 pounds. Okay, pick your hard. That's what it comes down to. Pick your hard. And cardio, okay, if you look at like how you would implement it, that pain, that lactic acid, believe it or not, is a signaling device. This is really cool new stuff that's coming in. Your brother might be super into this, Greg, but like the signaling device, meaning like we used to think that lactic acid was a byproduct of exercise in terms of like it was the burn that was slowing us down. But what it turns out is it's more so the hydrogen that is the byproduct that actually causes us to fatigue. Okay, the lactic acid is what is called a signaling device, the lactate. And that lactate sends a signal that triggers subsequent adaptation. So when you look at like someone that is doing higher intensity cardio or even moderate intensity for longer periods of time where they're getting to that lactate threshold, that lactate sends a signal that allows that muscle to adapt better, not only for cardio, but for lifting too. And I have always been a big cardio guy. Even when I was overweight, when I was losing weight, I still was doing a lot of cardio. And this is my own anecdotal experience, but I am convinced that my cardio is what gave me the endurance to do things like drop sets and to put the muscle under load the way that I really want to. I don't go to the gym and do a set and then sit there for 2 minutes and then do another set. I keep moving. I treat my weight training kind of like cardio. And I think that if I didn't have the cardio baseline to do that, that would be very, very difficult. At which point, the muscle adaptation wouldn't occur as much because it would be so stressful to the muscle. But my muscles, I'm kind of rambling with this, but the muscles are basically adapted to that so they can handle it.
And I think another thing people that they don't recognize is just how beneficial it is to our life expectancy. If you're just doing list cardio, that's great. Like if that's all you're doing, hey, you're doing it. It's shown a threefold increase in all chances of mortality goes down by threefold. So your chance of dying from anything, all causes, threefold decrease. If you go from just being unfit to just like a normal fit guy, just doing like normal cardio. But if you push the boundaries, you push for that lactic acid burn, you go harder than last time, you're training hard, intervals, things like that, you can actually increase that to a 5-fold decrease in chances of dying, which is amazing. But people are just so quick to say, it's not worth it. I just want to lift weights. I don't want to do cardio. It might lower my muscle. Really, by how much? And as you said, if you're more in shape, you're more fit, you can push harder because there's different ways your muscles grow. A lot of people might just go and do 5 sets of 5. My sets are 10, 15 reps and 5, 10 partials often. So I'm doing sets with a lot of time under tension. And the fact that I've been able to push hard on the bike and go through that pain barrier allows me to train hard in the gym with weights and therefore allowing more stimulus for muscles to grow. Also with supplementation, like beta alanine buffers more lactic acid, you can actually push even further and you can go harder. So a lot of supplements out there can actually help with people in their athletic performance as well. Beta alanine, I bring that up because a lot of people like Derek from Plates for Dates, Sean Alajuik, they're saying, probably not going to do much. It's not that great, itchy butthole, all this stuff. And I'm like, this is one of the best supplements in the world that's proven. Well, maybe not, it's hard to prove anything, but it's right there with creatine, caffeine as like the supplement that you should be taking. Now, what are your feelings on beta alanine? Do you think it's useful? Have you ever experimented with this yourself?
No. I like the, I'm kind of weird though. I just like to tingle. Like I like, so like, I don't mind that. Like, so it's like, so, okay, maybe there's a placebo effect with it. So could probably overlay footage of it, but like I've literally done a video before of like, hey, if you're making your own at-home pre-workout, it's like, it literally is that. It's like caffeine, creatine, some beta alanine. If you wanted to use some like citrulline malate just to try to get a little bit more of some volume, is it, if I had to look at a core fundamental, so yeah, is it nebulous? Again, once again it is, but the beta alanine, yes, it buffers the lactic acid, which has a good effect. Depends on what you're doing, right? Some degrees, like I recommend people like take some time off of beta alanine because you also still want to reach that. You want to be able to have a higher accumulation of lactate for that signaling device process, but then you also want to be able to make it so that it's buffered so that you can get there at a higher intensity. So from a performance standpoint, beta alanine may help you just get through that lactate period a little bit more, but then occasionally take it away, just occasionally take it away so that you get that extra burn so that you can have that signaling device property. It's pretty interesting with that. And creatine, I mean, I think undeniably is, well, again, can't say that, not undeniably, but in my opinion, undeniably. It's just like, I think that's one of the best all-around supplements that is out there. And people don't think that creatine has a benefit when it comes down to cardio. It can, because it depends how hard you're pushing it. Your creatine phosphate stores can still kind of replenish to a certain degree, even during moderate aerobic intensity. So let's say you have a really hard push on the bike and then you go into an aerobic mode for recovery. CP stores can still replenish a little bit there. So and then again, with keto, this is like a perfect transition with that. That is like the #1 performance supplement that I would recommend people take for keto, is because creatine is operating the creatine phosphate pathway is operating independently of the glycolytic pathway. So out of all question, like if you are concerned about performance on keto, like at least you could still bet on the fact that creatine is still going to help you in those first 1 to 3 reps, keto or not, because that is operating independently of those other pathways. But beta alanine, when it comes right back to it, I like the way it makes me feel because I try not to take a ton of caffeine before I work out because I feel like if I have too much, more than like 70 to 100 milligrams, if I have more than that, I feel a little bit disconnected from my body. I feel like I could probably do cardio really well, but with lifting, I really like the mind-muscle connection. The beta alanine kind of gives me a little bit of a tingle and makes me feel like my nervous system is a little bit alive. And maybe that's, again, placebo effect or whatever. But I mean, who doesn't like to tingle a little bit? I don't know.
I mean, let's say it's a placebo effect. Even if it allows you to train harder, it's going to end up with better results. And those results aren't going to be placebo. As far as creatine, I mean, I absolutely think it works, not just for allowing you to push harder, but also for your brain function. I do think that it's going to be beneficial for that. Beta alanine, it's more of something that I believe builds up in your system over time. So taking off, say you took off 2 weeks, I think it would lower its levels in your body a little bit and perhaps not benefit you as much, but eventually it'll go back down. I think beta alanine to me is like a no-brainer supplement. It allows you to push that much harder. So if I'm on the bike and I don't take it, instead of taking a minute to do, say, 1 hill, it might take me 1 minute and 1 without it. But if I'm taking it, I can do it in a minute. So regardless if I'm taking it or not, I'm still going all out. I'm still pushing. So whether or not I'm on it or not, I'm still going to get the lactic acid burn, that feeling. It's just going to happen faster with or without it.
Yeah, totally. And it's a good transition. I mean, I think you and I, in some ways we overlap a little bit. We both agree to a certain degree on some aspects of fasted training, but we disagree on others. And that's one of the things I talk about. You're not big on training fasted, but you're okay with cardio being somewhat fasted, right?
So training fasted, for me, I have horrible results. I can't train fasted, and cardio fasted, I think that can be equally as good as not being fasted, but not better. So for example, if I'm on the bike and I'm riding an hour and I haven't eaten anything, and if I'm a little bit weak from not having eaten and I can't quite push as much, I'm not going to burn as many calories. But if I'm just going at moderate, like miss or LIS, no problem. There's no effect. If I'm just out going for a ride, if I'm in Mexico and I'm waking up, I often do cardio fasted. I'll just get up and do my cardio and go to breakfast and go for an after. No problem. But if I was in a race and I had to win that race, or it was for money, I'm eating, because I don't want to take the chance that I don't have that energy from not eating. I'm also going to take a fat burner, a pre-workout, like you're saying, with caffeine. And actually right now, because I broke the elbow and I have it surgically reattached. Yeah, it doesn't look the best, but I can't train super hard. So I've actually stopped taking pre-workout. I'm just taking like a pump, like the citrulline, creatine, these things, just no problem. And I'm going to see what it's like to go back on it. So I'm on a caffeine stimulant detox right now. I haven't had caffeine for weeks. So I'm wondering how it's going to actually feel to go back and take pre-workout after having none for a while. And I'm betting it's going to be a doozy.
It's going to be a doozy for sure. Yeah. Cause like on that note, like I'm taking a little bit of a break even from coffee, just do it from time to time, just because I like to, again, do things that are hard. It's hard to cut out coffee. I feel like if it's making my life easier, then maybe I should cut it out for a little bit. Maybe it's something, it's just simply put, and when you come down to, like, you mentioned something with like the mental piece too. Like, I think everyone discounts the fact that like doing hard cardio is just good for the brain. Okay, like periods of hypoxia.
Good for autophagy as well, which is another benefit of intermittent fasting that so many people are getting for the benefits of autophagy.
Yes.
Like that hard cardio, that's actually good. So
100%.
I don't need to fast because I'm pushing myself so hard on the bike. I'm getting all those benefits in that way for longevity and so on.
I'm glad you said that, because it also it sort of debunks some of the acceleration towards like the autophagy talk in the fasting world. And trust me, like, I am all about, like, the autophagy research is badass. Like, that is some really cool stuff. But I think we also have to remember that autophagy is always occurring in our body. It's not like something that is only for people that fast. And you nailed it. Like, the same kind of autophagic flux can occur with cardio that it does with fasting. So the question is okay, if I'm in a fast, during a fast, will I get more autophagy by doing cardio? Not necessarily. It sort of caps out. So you're not necessarily doing cardio for an autophagy benefit during a fast. I mean, cardio is going to give you the autophagy benefit either way, but you're not necessarily getting more. But my take, coming from, and this is just interesting, it's not even saying that your way is wrong, with the keto world and the fasting world, I tend to recommend cardio in a fasted state because they're going to liberate at that time. It's not necessarily about the calories in, calories out for me at that point. It's like, how can we liberate more fatty acids to form ketones, particularly in the morning? Hopefully they're doing cardio in the morning, because at that rate, then you're kind of setting the pace for the day. So liberating the fatty acids, whether you're in a deficit or not, can lead to ketogenesis. So it's kind of like, okay, that's a perfect little storm there. One of the things that I really caution people with, and one of the things that I'm very careful with, and I mentioned this in another segment or earlier in this longer segment, is that if you train fasted, you can expect your strength to not be as strong as or great as if you had some food in you. That's normal, okay? That's normal. And it's okay if you just accept that and you just train like your new relative. It's your new relative. It's all good. But one of the things that I do is 2 or 3 days a week, usually about 2, I will go in and I will train with a little bit of food in my system, usually on a double day. So like if I have some extra time, maybe I did my cardio fasted, so then later in the afternoon I'll go and train, and I'll actually have an orange or something before my workout. Not because I feel like I need the extra power. It certainly does help. I definitely can squeeze out another rep. It definitely makes a difference, but because it comes back to something that's very important for me as a low carb athlete. As a low carb athlete, I need to make sure that my body still knows how to operate well with glucose coming in from the diet. Because again, I mentioned this before, but that glucose intolerance is a real thing. And there are multiple studies that demonstrate that, like, when you're doing 2-a-day training, like how to fuel properly. So it's a perfect opportunity. I still got my quote unquote fat burning effect by doing my fasted cardio. That's all great. I still liberated ketones. I did all that. But my weight training, let's say I want to have a little orange or something before. Then it's essentially forcing that glucose into my cell so my body is still conditioned and knows how to use it properly. It's giving me the best of both worlds. I don't want to be a one-trick pony with keto. I don't want to be a one-trick pony with just carbs. I want it all. Like I want to go for it all. I'm after performance. And I find myself, and maybe you're this way too, as a cardio-oriented person, I have to sometimes stop myself from making my lifting cardio-oriented. Like I want to get a good workout in. I always want to get a good workout in. And sometimes I think that comes at the mercy of lifting as heavy or as hard as I could because maybe my rest periods are too short, or maybe I'm moving around too much because I just like to get my heart rate up because I'm a cardio weirdo. And I find like if I do my cardio first and I get that out of the way, like in the morning, and then like a couple days a week, I go in the gym in the afternoon, I feel like, hey, I already got my rocks off with my cardio. Now I can focus on nice longer rest periods, and I can focus on lifting heavy, and I can have a little bit of carbs before there because I'm not thinking in fat burning mode, I'm thinking in muscle mode. And it just helps me just psychosomatically.
I think you brought up so many subjects here, great things to talk about. For example, if you're burning fat more so on an empty stomach, should you actually be doing cardio on an empty stomach? Well, the research basically says, yeah, you're probably burning more fat if you do cardio on an empty stomach, but after you then eat, you're then burning less fat afterwards. So it's kind of balancing out. Also, with weightlifting or cardio, should you do it first thing in the morning or later in the day? Well, most of the research is going to say that at best, lifting weights can be as good in the morning as later in the day. But for a lot of people, it's going to be better. You're going to be stronger late in their day because you have more chance for hydration. You're going to have a couple meals. You're going to maybe gain a few pounds and you're stronger. So it possibly could be hurting you if you're lifting weights in the morning compared to the afternoon, but you should still lift whenever you want because that's the best time to lift. And should you be doing weights and cardio at the same time? Probably not if you're trying to maximize both. So where you come in, you do your cardio in the morning, that gets it out of the way. And then later in the day, after you've eaten a few meals, you can go and really push the weights. And at this time, I really think it's important to separate cardio from weights. When I'm in the weight room, it's about building muscle. And when I'm in cardio, I don't care about muscle, I care about cardio. So I separate the two. So for me, I don't think it's good to say rest less than a minute between sets. I think it's important to get that rest to, in fact, build up that ATP again, because that's that energy that we need. And if you don't rest long enough, you're going to be lifting a lot lighter weight. So rather than maybe you're benching with 250, if you're only resting 40 seconds, that 250, maybe it's 200. So you're not able to lift as heavy a weight. You can't put as much muscle damage. And then in the end, you're not building as much muscle.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, it's easy because I'm so victim of that because I am just someone that seeks out, like, I just want the hard. I just like, so I still, like, I went through a phase for a while where I was really doing a lot of, hybrid style workouts, which would tax me, fry my central nervous system, but I actually wasn't too happy with my body composition results. I mean, again, I understand that I'm in great shape and, in a probably better shape than a lot of people. So I understand that it's whatever. But the point is that I noticed that, okay, well, yeah, because I'm not able to give 100% to either one. I'm like sitting in this gray area. That being said, I found that just for body composition and just for being able to focus, separating cardio, and I always say that, like, clear line of delineation, cardio, weights, two different worlds. Now, what I will do is 1 to 2 days a week, I do still kind of do my hybrid days. But you know what? They're set up that way. They're not my clay mass builders. They're not my foundation. They're like, hey, this is a test of my overall fitness. And again, like with military applications and things that I work with, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's nice to be able to keep up with those guys. It's nice to be able to do that. It's nice to be able to be a general athlete, but I will go back to the root of it. When I'm talking to someone that's doing the basics, 100% focus on your cardio. I know I tagged you. What actually spawned this call is I tagged Greg and I started doing like the Echelon bike, which is like Peloton bike, and I just realized like, holy crap! Like for me, like this is great because like my running game is off a little bit right now because of my back injuries, and I'm also up in Tahoe and we got like 8 feet of snow and it's hard to go out and run. And I'm like, so it's like, man, so I just thought of you and I'm like, it's so nice like to just be able to like focus in, only think about cardio and just like get it done. And then later in the day, I go and I lift and I have a little bit of food in my belly, whether I'm keto or not. Then I do feel pretty good. That doesn't mean that I don't lift in a fasted state too. Like I usually do. And there's some benefits with keto as far as that's concerned. But for me, I just like how I feel in the morning. I just get too busy and later in the day, my mental game isn't right.
And I just love a challenge, and I love cardio and just trying to see my watts go up and just seeing your improvement, because my whole life, I mean, I'm 46 now. I got bigger and I got stronger for decades. I was natural for over 20 years training, hit a peak and then got into PTs and again jumped up and got even bigger. Now I'm 46. I've got all the injuries. I'm not setting powerlifting records anymore, but I have biking to look forward to that I can push yourself and improve on. And so how my training in the gym has changed is I used to do the straight sets, like, 5-6 sets of bench press, rest 5 minutes and go again. Now I don't have time for that. I'm always working. And so what I do is I do agonist antagonistic muscle training. So I'll do a set of chest, then I'll do a set of back, and I can go back and forth, kind of like circuit training. And I do have a training book, it's basically how I train now. So I do it a lot different than I used to. Have you ever tried that? Is that how you do it? Do you do that kind of training, like circuit? Because you're not resting very long. But for example, if you rest 40 seconds between sets of the chest, it's just not enough rest.
No, it's not.
Chest, back, legs, and you kind of go in a circuit. By the time you get back to chest, it's fresh. So you can kind of combine both worlds that way.
Totally. That's exactly how I think of it. And a lot of times sometimes I'll go back between like an upper lower split, and then a lot of times I like a full body split, just because I feel like, as far as periodization goes, I could I have a couple options. I can go on Monday and fry my chest and not be ready to hit chest again until Monday. And then if you look at how many growth cycles or tension cycles you get on that muscle over the course of the year, in a perfect world, that would be 52 times that I'm frying my chest. Okay, well, volume is important, but I also feel like if I train full body and I kind of do it in that circuit fashion, then I can come back and I'm still ready to hit it the day later, or every other day. And I feel like I'm getting more consistent touch points on that muscle throughout the course of the year, which in my field, I feel like it's helped me retain muscle better, because I feel like I'm all about keeping tension on the muscle. Like when your muscle's not being used is when it's going to atrophy. So I'm all about just kind of cycling through it like that. And yeah, it keeps the heart rate up and the antagonist muscle groups, so going from chest to back. And that back is a huge muscle. So, you're going to get winded. So I feel like, yes, I'm getting that cardio effect. I had Stan Efferding came out to visit with me. We filmed some stuff a couple weeks ago, and like his style, he was doing antagonistic and he was still taking like a minute in between. It was perfect. It was like chest, 60 seconds, back, 60 seconds, chest, 60 seconds. And you would think, 60 seconds between opposing muscle groups, you're not going to be that gassed. Yeah, after 8 minutes of that, I'm pretty gassed.